Hey, welcome back, Charlie Good Times. How y'all doing? I thought of something and I had to come beg the question. How do you know what's right and what's wrong? How do you ever know what's right and what's wrong? I've always been told, you just do. You're born that way. If you don't know what's right from wrong when you're born, you're broken and you can't be fixed. You can't be fixed. That's the big one. If you don't know the difference between right and wrong, you're broken and you can't be fixed. So you better know the difference. And if you don't, you better keep quiet about it because you're supposed to be born with it. Now, I suppose we are born with it. But I can't imagine how we're supposed to possibly navigate through any kind of social space with our inherited knowledge of what's right and what's wrong, of what's good and what's evil. Our inherited capacity to tell the difference between what's right and what's wrong does not apply to this interesting place that we live, this colony upon the earth. So how do you know the difference between what's right and what's wrong? Well, my dog knows the difference between what's right and what's wrong, or something like that. My dog will eat my food or go through the garbage. And when I confront my dog about this, my dog will be ashamed of himself. I can tell that my dog is not happy with the way things are going. But I wonder if the shame my dog feels and its embarrassment at its inability to abstain from that behavior, is that a knowledge of good and evil? Is that a knowledge of right and wrong? Or is that a vain attempt to know right and wrong? Is it not vain for the dog, but vain for wanting to see right from wrong in that instance? Perhaps in that instance there is no right or wrong, and the vanity is in trying to find it from the scenario. To the dog, any unattended meal is his meal. That is the way of the dog. This confusion about leaving meals unattended and holding oneself back, this is fundamentally wrong to the dog given what we'd expect to be most of its natural history. For the dog, an unattended meal is a wasted meal, left to anything else that might find it. For the dog, being punished for this might be rather confusing. And so we get these expressions of shame and embarrassment from dogs, or we project them. The dog nonetheless recognizes that we will have some sort of consequences that shall have to be bared upon it. Not for having done the thing, but for having been caught. So, again, I beg the question, how do we know right from wrong? certainly you don't want to tell folks to try. Well, you got to go out and you got to do the wrong thing. No. No, I suppose you want to convince them, go out and do the right thing. And you'll know it's right because it'll feel good. Well, it's confusing for a lot of people when they do what they think is the right thing, but they don't feel good. And maybe they don't understand the mechanics of the thing being done. Maybe they can't see properly what it is that's being done and can't replicate it. But for fear of being discovered as someone who doesn't know the difference between right and wrong, they better not speak up. They better just keep doing what it appears everyone else is doing. So what is the difference between right and wrong? I'm begging the question. I reckon you find out the difference between right and wrong the same way that you choose to find out how much pressure it takes to break your leg, how much blood you can lose before you die. Do you want to find out the difference between right and wrong, good and bad, by doing the worst thing that people suppose can be done? Probably not. What if you're wrong? You'll find out in that moment, but you'll never be able to find out why, or for what you could have done with that knowledge if you'd gone on. So, I beg of you to ask yourself, how do you know what's right from wrong? I know what's right from wrong because I have done wrong and I have done good. I have done right. And I have learned to discern the difference between the two. This decision comes with more nuance every time there is any consideration to be had. Because I'm always learning more what's right and what's wrong. If you don't know what's wrong, be careful. You might be doing it right now.